Right-wingers are mostly in denial about the radicalization of young white males. And I say this as someone who witnessed the radicalization of young white males firsthand during the 2010s. The online environment, it created this perfect breeding ground for some of the most deplorable, not well thought out ideas to flourish on the internet. It would be one thing if the ideas were misinformed, but they weren't dangerous. The biggest problem with the online right-wing counterculture is that the ideas are dangerous and it's misinformation. And I'm making this video in part because of the right-wing reaction to the new series. I think it's on Netflix, or it was created by the BBC. I'm not entirely sure, but it's called Adolescence. And it basically tells a story of a young white male who gets radicalized and goes on a stabbing spree. And this series, I think it's a 4-episode series, I think it's mostly being used as a preventative measure against young white males getting radicalized by online personalities. And even in that series, they mention people like Andrew Tate as a main influence of this. And I think Andrew Tate, he's a fascinating character because he has a disordered mind. But I'm going to get back on that probably in some other video. But although I don't think Andrew Tate can be entirely blamed for it, or I don't think it's even fair to use out of context clips to convict him of radicalizing young boys, I don't think only an idiot would deny that the things he says and his personality, his online personality, didn't have an effect on the radicalization of young white males. It is going to be a major problem going forward. Although young black right-wingers, in their response to adolescence, they usually say things but young black males, they commit let's say, violent crime at a disproportionate rate. The problem with that is young black males, their crime is mostly related to poverty or gang violence, whereas young white males, their crimes are becoming they're becoming ideological crimes. They're crimes related to ideology, and they're spreading among people who are intelligent and educated enough to not be in poverty, and not intelligent enough to see the forest from the tree. Not intelligent enough to see the forest from the trees. They're middle people in the middle, who are getting radicalized on the right wing, and they tend to be below the average standard of income. What I notice is the Democratic Party is becoming the party of rich, well-educated whites, whites who make more than $100,000 a year, and the Republican Party is becoming the party of the white underclass. The underclass, not necessarily because they're less intelligent, although they tend to be less intelligent, but because of a lot of factors related to globalization and how the U.S. economy currently works, how it prioritizes people who use their intellect to get ahead rather than physical labor. For example, the northern states tend to have more industry than people in states on the coast tend to have more industry than states in the middle and in the south. The south is more agrarian, and the north and the Midwest is more factory. Those factory workers. Of course, things are manufactured in the center of the country and shipped to the coast. And the coast, those financial sectors and tech sectors and stuff. So a lot of it has to do with the way the U.S. economy is structured. Although they also tend to be less, the people who are being radicalized also tend to be they have less formal education and less intelligent in general. But anyway, this series, Adolescence, is trying to be used as a preventative measure to stop the online radicalization of young white males, but conservatives simply cannot come to terms with the fact that the radicalization is even happening. And it is going to be a major, major problem going forward. Not just because radicalization is dangerous, but because whether these people who are reacting this way negatively to this series, like it or not, the countries in which they reside are multicultural countries, and we live in a globalized world that may begin to become less Eurocentric as China gains dominance in the world. So, Europeans, we are in the post-colonial age. Colonization and colonialism will not work in the future, or at least not in the same way it was used in the past. A lot of these British people who are responding to Adolescence, the TV series, and trying to assert British nationalism more broadly, what they don't understand is the era of the British Empire is over. It simply won't work. Britain is a multicultural country, and you cannot change this. The people who were invited to Britain and became British citizens, the British people were not forced to do this. The British people created laws and allowed foreigners to come into their country and gave them equal rights to native British citizens. For all intents and purposes, these people are British. The British, it was done by the consent of the British people and the British court system and the British legal system. And the British people had complete control over these systems. It was not imposed on them. The radicalization of young white males is a major problem, and is going to be a major problem going forward in the 2020s and perhaps even the 2030s, as these young people who are getting radicalized become of age. They come of age. And of course, those of us who are paying attention, we saw signs of this in the 2010s. We saw signs of it, how people being radicalized, and yes, it was radicalization. Getting radicalized online in echo chambers. A lot of it was for fun. Like a lot of it, I'm not going to deny that a lot of the online counterculture was like lighthearted and stuff, but a lot of people got radicalized. A lot of socially awkward, socially alienated people got radicalized. And it is happening today as well, as after Elon Musk gained control of Twitter. And it is something that has to be combated.